President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping tariff plan targeting several U.S. trading partners, accusing them of taking advantage of American markets by boosting exports while maintaining high barriers to imports. His Liberation Day tariffs risk setting off a global domino effect, potentially introducing a new challenge to an already strained world economy, a $400 billion wave of Chinese goods seeking new destinations. China, viewed by many in Trump's circle as the United States' chief geopolitical competitor, has been hit particularly hard. Chinese imports will now face a 34% duty, on top of a 10% tariff imposed in February, another 10% in March, and a series of duties implemented under both President Joe Biden and Trump's first term. Economists estimate these measures will push the average tariff rate on Chinese goods to around 70%. This steep tariff wall is expected to divert some U.S.-bound Chinese exports into an already saturated global market, exacerbating the so-called China shock that has prompted pushback from governments worldwide. According to U.S. Census Bureau data, the United States imported approximately $440 billion worth of goods from China in 2024. A sudden drop in American purchases of Chinese imports means unsold products will need to find new markets. Absorbing these excess exports will be a challenge for other nations, particularly given the scale of China's manufacturing capacity. Rising tensions between China and major global economies may intensify if Chinese exporters attempt to redirect shipments originally bound for the U.S. elsewhere. Chinese President Xi Jinping has ramped up investment in manufacturing to support advanced technology and stimulate economic growth amid a real estate crisis and sluggish consumer spending. The result has been a surge in exports as Chinese firms seek international buyers for goods that domestic consumers are unable to absorb. Last year, China reported a record $1 trillion trade surplus. In response, countries have moved to protect their domestic industries from the influx of lower-priced Chinese goods. Brazil launched anti-dumping investigations into Chinese imports of hypodermic needles, optical fibers, nebulizers, and polyester mesh. Mexico and Canada have initiated probes into Chinese aluminum, steel, and chemicals. The UK's Trade Protection Agency recommended anti-dumping duties of up to 84% on Chinese excavators following a surge in imports. Meanwhile, the European Union has raised tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles after concluding that Chinese automakers had received significant government subsidies. Economists suggest that one way to ease trade tensions would be for China to stimulate domestic spending, which could help absorb industrial production and increase demand for imports from other countries. Beijing has already announced plans to borrow and spend more to boost economic growth and consumer confidence. However, given the unexpected scale of Trump's tariff move, analysts say further measures may be necessary, such as cutting interest rates, increasing government borrowing, and implementing policies to restore consumer confidence, possibly by addressing its prolonged real estate downturn. Even countries not specifically targeted for reciprocal tariffs under Trump's plan will be affected. A flat 10% tariff on all imports will take effect on April 5th, adding another layer of complexity to global trade dynamics. China, facing a reciprocal 34% tariff, now faces additional challenges. With its deep trade ties to ASEAN nations, there are concerns that Chinese exporters may redirect goods into the region, potentially overwhelming local markets and triggering deflationary pressures. China's inclusion in the tariff package facing a 34% reciprocal tariff adds another layer of complexity. Given China's deep trade ties with ASEAN nations, there is concern that Chinese exporters may redirect goods into the region, potentially overwhelming local markets and driving prices down in a deflationary shock. The United States' latest round of tariffs is set to hit some of the fastest-growing economies in Southeast Asia, raising concerns about potential disruptions to global trade networks. Countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, integral players in global supply chains, are bracing for significant economic impacts. The tariffs impose a 10% baseline duty on all imports, with country-specific rates for those the U.S. deems to be engaging in unfair trade practices. Vietnam faces the steepest increase at 46%, followed by Thailand at 36%, Indonesia at 32%, and Malaysia at 24%. These measures sent shockwaves through regional financial markets, with Vietnam's benchmark index dropping 6.7% and Thailand's losing 1.4%. Malaysian markets closed 0.5% lower, while Indonesia's market was closed for a holiday. Analysts warn that these tariffs pose a significant challenge for the region, particularly for Vietnam, which has rapidly emerged as a global manufacturing hub. The United States accounts for approximately 15% of exports from ASEAN nations, and these new levies threaten to stifle growth. Despite the harsh economic outlook, retaliation from affected governments appears unlikely for now. Instead, diplomatic efforts to negotiate fairer trade terms are underway. Thailand's Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra acknowledged the U.S. stance and emphasized a commitment to dialogue. Malaysia echoed similar sentiments, stressing its commitment to fair trade while actively engaging with U.S. authorities. Vietnam, meanwhile, convened an urgent government meeting following the tariff announcement. The country expressed hope that the U.S. would reconsider its policies in light of the strong bilateral relationship between the two nations.